3 journalists indicted by the military tribunal for retaining information have all regained their respective homes but will not have freedom of movement. The trial were held today at the military tribunal in Yaoundé. Plus, 2 children drowned in Kenkem and 1 man found dead in his own room mysteriously. Those are the human interest stories we have for you tonight. We shall be discovering the new face of the Ndokoti roundabout. It has been militarized just weeks after a fatal road accident occurred there. Those are the top stories. I'll be right back with the detail. Good evening, thanks for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinox Television. We'll begin with human interest stories. Calm is still to return in Kemkem Bafang in the west region of the country after 2 children drowned. We also discovered a 49-year-old man that was found dead mysteriously in his room. Mimi Mefo has these human interest stories for the 6 p.m. news.
Shock gripped the population of Kenkem in Bafang after a more than 3-year-old child died in an unprotected well. The boy was at home with his sister after the parents left for work. A relative explains that the child's disappearance was only noticed when he got home. The body of Nguma Joel was retrieved from this pool of water after hours of intensive search. The mother was inconsolable. Few kilometers from these residents, another search is underway. A 22-year-old boy fell at the Nkam River as he returned from the farm. Reports say Nchamin Michael got drowned in an attempt to retrieve his cutlass that fell in the river.
Vraiment, ça a été très difficile pour nous. Quelque chose horrible. J'ai jamais vu. L'enfant va au champ.
The corpse of the boy was laid to rest few hours after. Another shocking discovery in this locality of the Onkam division was the remains of a 49-year-old that were discovered in his bedroom. Paul was not perceived by relatives and neighbors for close to 2 days. His lifeless body was only discovered on the floor when the family members forced their way into the house. His brother testified that he was suffering from hernia for several years and his condition deteriorated because he failed to inform them.
Pathetic stories from the west region of the country, and still on human interest stories in this edition of the 6 p.m. news. A family at Letok Lasak neighborhood in Bafang cheated death after their house collapsed. The incident resulted from soil erosion. Once more, Mimi Mefo.
All the occupants of the house were at home when it collapsed. The erosion followed a heavy downpour which lasted for several hours. The problem of poor drainage canal, which has been the cry of these locals, played a greater role in the incident. A section of the house collapsed to the ground, causing enormous material damage. A rescue team reported to the site of the incident to evacuate valuables that were not destroyed. The entire family has been rendered homeless.
Thanks immensely for those reports. Commercial activities on pavements at the Ndokoti roundabout have been halted following a prefectural order. The entire area has been militarized with the presence of council police. Veronica Aji reports that traffic congestion is still the order of the day.
Commercial activities along Carrefour Ndokoti have come to a standstill. Phone booth structures and other sales stands could still be spotted. Pedestrians say the problem of circulation has only seen a partial solution.
It's easy to walk than the last time, but there are many traffic jams.
This man says cars parked along the road does not permit them to make use of the pavement. Hawkers are still displaying dresses for sale, heavy-duty trucks circulating freely and even parked along the road. Bikes running in all directions does not make things easier. At some points, the municipal police of the Douala Urban Council are present to ensure that the order is respected. Passers-by are questioning how effective the order would be implemented. They complain that the government tend to comply with the same traders. A glaring picture of the PK14 market, where the streets have become sales points, despite council orders demanding them to leave the roadside. Agents of the Douala Urban Council are carrying on with the sales of tickets, amidst others.
Away from that now, the 3 journalists recently indicted by the military tribunal in Yaoundé have regained their respective homes but not freed. They were held in court today in Yaoundé over the alleged retain of information. Ebola has been told not to practice journalism and not to leave the country for the time being. Meantime, the National Trade Union of Cameroonian Journalists has condemned in strong terms the indictment of the trio for allegedly retaining pertinent information. The union is of the opinion that the law indicting a journalist is not applicable to the press. Here now is an excerpt of Charles Ngafongang. He is a member of that union.
Yeah, it is quite clear that our penal code stipulates in 2 of his articles that any Cameroonians who has some information about that can help the authority in order to come truth, for example, a battle, should go and give those information to the government or to the authorities. But as far as journalists are concerned, we believe that that cannot be imposed on journalists because the Munich Charter, who gathers the practice of journalism, stipulate at its Article 7 that a journalist does not have the right, the opportunity, the allowance to divulgate, to make known his sources, and also to publish, to make known his sources from news he got from a third party. So we don't believe that even if the penal code wants to do that, we don't believe that journalists who have to respect that law, that Munich Charter, will go and deliver information he got from a third party. So we believe that it is quite true that the penal code could send everybody to prison if that is not respect, but we believe that as far as journalists are concerned, that should not be applied to journalists.
Charles Ngafongang is our guest tonight to talk on that. The fight against poliomyelitis in the Little region has been successful. Health officials revealed only 5% of children in the region have not been vaccinated. This was during a conference to announce a double-phase vaccination to be coming up on October 31. Etofle Rosalie.
No case of polio has been recorded in the entire littoral region, but the case registered in the eastern part of the country in the month of July raises worries. Dr. Disak Delong is a public health physician. She cites the porosity of frontiers in the Central African sub-region to be a contributing factor to the spread of diseases like the case of poliomyelitis.
We cannot stop people to move from a country to another, and we know that our frontiers in the Central Africa are not physical barriers. I decided to synchronize the action so that we are sure that no matter if you move, no matter if you travel, you will be vaccinated at the same moment, and we know that nobody will be missed.
The synchronized vaccination against polio is ongoing in all 10 countries of the sub-region, including Nigeria, which shares a large borderline with Central African nations.
Although we don't have cases here, it's not that we should not wait for the virus to come here before starting the vaccination, because the children that we are sacrificing doesn't merit.
Teams will go around schools, houses and other locations vaccinating against poliomyelitis, but also administer vitamin A and medication to deworm children. Mebendazole 500 milligrams.
Children, especially children of less than 5 years old, are more exposed to diseases, to illnesses. That is why we have to help them to strengthen their body.
The campaign this time around coincides with the second phase of the Mother and Child Health Nutrition Action Week, better known as SASNIM, following objectives 4 and 5 of the Millennium Development Goal Initiative. Infant mortality has to be reduced by 2/3 and maternal by 3/4. The vaccination also targets refugee children.
Thanks for that report. It takes us out of the country now. More than 3,000 Europeans have joined the Islamic State in Syria fighting for the jihad cause. Among these Europeans who are helping the Islamic State are 300 Belgians. Now, over 48 of them were recently tried by a Belgian court, but just 8 appeared before judges. The DWTV has the details.
Security was high in Antwerp as the accused arrived at court. They were all members of the Sharia 4 Belgium group. Only 8 out of the 46 defendants came to the hearing. Those absent are presumed dead or still on the front lines. One of the defendants is Yeun Bontink. He'll also be called as a witness to explain how these young men became jihadist fighters. His father says the state is also to blame.
I don't see any prevention in Belgium. I don't see any more border controls. Today I confirm that minors, youngsters are still taking a plane without permission of the parents and moving up to Syria to end and landed stranded by ISIS.
Prosecutors say this man is responsible, Fouad Belkacem. He's long been known by Belgian authorities as an anti-government radical. He's even accused of plotting to blow up the atomium, the symbol of Brussels. He says Islam as a religion and a social system is superior to the West. Peter Calloy, a former social worker, was there 10 years ago when Belkacem started his network at a youth center in Antwerp. He said Belkacem targeted young boys who were vulnerable.
He spoke to 14, 15-year-old boys. He told them their fathers weren't integrated, so they weren't worth anything. Not to Islam, not to their people, their country. He said they were just worthless.
Back then, Calloy tried to raise the alarm, but Belgian authorities ignored him. Should they have stepped in? There have been recent shows of solidarity between Muslim and Christian communities across Belgium. Parents are united in their concern for their children.
We have to be more open. Muslims have to reach out. We have to open our mosques to everyone, eat together, discuss things together. That can change a lot.
The prosecution is demanding 15 to 20 years in jail for Fouad Belkacem. The trial is already stoking the debate on how Belgium should deal with radical Islamists.
And in a related story, still out of Cameroon, over 100,000 Syrian refugees are now camping in Jordan and neighboring towns, but their major problem is access to food as well as lodging. The German overseas television channel, the DWTV, has a feature story on the refugees of Syria.
In the middle of the Jordanian desert, row upon row of containers house some 13,000 Syrian refugees. This woman is named Syria. She and her 5 children are among the refugees. They fled their home 6 weeks ago, after more than 3 years of civil war.
We fled the Islamic State. The Assad regime spared us, but IS struck terror into our children's hearts. If we didn't have children, we would have barricaded ourselves in and locked the door. But we had to leave because of IS.
The family comes from Deir ez-Zor in eastern Syria. Although they have found safety here in Jordan, they're worried about relatives who did not make it across the border before it was closed.
It's vital that they're led over the border. Dear God, I hope I'll be able to go home one day. Everything is better in Syria. The earth is fertile there.
The family has survived war and a perilous flight, and they're now adjusting to life in the desert. Jordan is known for its hospitality towards refugees, But with more than 500,000 Syrians already there, tensions are rising. Many Jordanians say they are pushing up prices and rents. Ahmed Al-Dawi is a teacher and an activist. She does what she can to raise awareness of the plight of refugees. Today, she's taking clothes to a Syrian family in Amman. She says there are misunderstandings on both sides.
The first part of the news has ended. The second part dedicated to talking points just in a jiffy. The social climate of Cameroon's media landscape is getting worse these days. Could the recent question in political pronunciation be a form of intimidation of Cameroonian journalists? Joining us tonight to talk on the recent questioning of 3 journalists at the military tribunal in Yaoundé is a member of the Cameroon Union of Journalists as well as the National Communications Secretary, Mr. Charles Fongang. Good evening.
Good evening and thanks to be your guest.
Is there any law obliging journalists to give out information to the military or the government?
Yeah, the Article 107 of the Penal Code states that a citizen who in peacetime does not inform the military, the administrative or the judicial authorities of any information at his disposal that can destabilize the national defense or the country should be punished. So if a citizen, being a journalist, being a lecturer in a university, has an information that the state believes that it can destabilize the country, then he has the right to go and inform the authorities.
And can we say, in the context of the 3 Cameroonian journalists who were held today at the military tribunal in Yaoundé, in this context, what is their crime?
Okay, now the problem is that this law cannot be applicable to all Cameroonians, because you know that as far as journalists are concerned, and the 3 of them who were at the military tribunal today, all those journalists have to respect the charter of the journalists, notably what we call the Military Declaration of the Duties and Rights of Journalists. And this Military Declaration has rights and also duties. I would like to go through the duties. The Article 7 of the duties states, clearly mentioned that journalists should observe the professional secrecy and do not divulge the source of information obtained confidentially. I would like to come to quote it for the second time, that journalists should observe the professional secrecy and not divulging the source of information obtained confidentially. And all trade unions all over the world, worldwide, recommend to journalists to respect that duty, even if they should be sent to jail or if they should be killed. So we don't understand how far journalists can be, the military can expect that journalists will come and give to them the source of information they got from a third party. So it cannot be like that.
What if the information could be dangerous to security of the nation?
Look, it doesn't mean that we are against the law of this country. We all love this country. Cameroon is us. We love this country. But we say that as far as the laws governing the practice of journalism in Cameroon is concerned, even worldwide, a journalist cannot go and handle the information he has secretly to the authority, even if, let us say that, even if this information, as we said, can destabilize the country. We believe that our country has other measures through which they can come through that type of information.
You are talking of maybe the intelligence unit, or well, what about failing in their duties as citizens, not to give out this information, if at all they have the information?
Look, if let's take into consideration a journalist decide to go and handle that type of information,
maybe to handle it as a citizen, not as a journalist.
No, look, we know that before being a journalist, we are citizens, and we say that we love Cameroonians, we love the country Cameroon, we love our country. But now, as far as that you have been practicing, if you receive this information as journalists, because we can ask ourselves how these journalists succeed to have those information. If they have those information as journalists, then they should respect the law governing the practice of journalism. Maybe if in the other hand, in other case, they can have some information. I don't even know, even if a journalist obtain information truth, I don't know any way, as a journalist, as written, as stated by the Munich Law of 1971, the journalist does not have the right to go and divulgate the source of that information.
So what are you telling the military tribunal as well as those who indicted these 3 journalists?
I would just want them to consider that
law. Are they against the law?
No, they are not against the law. They are trying to applicate the penal code. It is quite. We say that we know quite all right that the Article 107 wants journalists to do that, wants all the citizens to do that, but we believe that that cannot be applicable to journalists because the journalists, being citizens, also have another law they have to respect. It is a convention, and worldwide journalists respect that convention. So even if you are a citizen of Cameroon and being a journalist, you are a citizen of Cameroon and journalist, then you have to respect that law, the Munich Charter of Duties and Rights of the Journalist. So the military tribunal should understand that it is quite true that journalists love their country as they also do, but as far as the practice of their job is concerned, they cannot respect that Article 107.
So you see this as an intimidation to the journalism profession?
Maybe it is the police has been given to us to bring that into table and debate, that to question the existence of those laws. That if that law should be applicable, should it be applicable to all Cameroonians, or some Cameroonians should be kept aside of that? We would like to believe that after what happened in Yaoundé, the military tribunal will understand that those journalists were on their right, and that they could not, even now that they have been asked to say that they cannot divulgate the source of information they got.
Could this have any political undertone, given the political situation in the country?
You know that every year Reporters Without Borders publish the rank of countries that respect the freedom of the press. And now what happened in Yaoundé, automatically I would like to believe it is a pity that Cameroon this year we have a very bad score.
Could it be unconnected with the Marafa Hamidou Yahya case, Barrister Harisu case?
We don't know. From what we know is that the affair is related to Mr. Harisu case. We don't know exactly what is the type of information those journalists have.
Allegedly
hard. We don't know, but we say that as far as journalists, they cannot go and handle that information to the military tribunal or to the authorities.
Now, Mr. Syriac and co are being freed, but not given the free movement, maybe to move out of Cameroon, and as well as to practice journalism for the time being.
Yes.
What's your reaction?
We appreciate the fact that they have been made free, but we don't appreciate the fact that they cannot practice journalism as far as Mr. Ebola is concerned. We don't understand why the fact of practicing journalism has to do with what is going on. Even if there are investigations, we can understand that they prevent them from going out of the country, but we cannot understand why they can prevent them from practicing journalism. We don't know if they have been already sentenced, but if it is quite true that the case in other investigation, then we don't understand that. We believe that and we promise that the Cameroon National Trade Union we attack the decision taken by the military tribunal.
Maybe to go out of this interview, it seems like even politicians are giving journalists some lessons on what to do, and even men of institution. We saw yesterday the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea telling journalists what to do. We saw Gregoire Ouna, who actually came out to tell journalists what to write. Administrators have been coming out. Do we see this profession really going down the drain?
Yeah, it is a pity in this country that everybody wants to give lessons to journalists. They forget that journalists has rules governing the practice of journalism. So we don't understand, and most of the time I used to ask journalists to refuse to make known that type of decision taking or allegation. We refuse that. So if a journalist maybe assist or attend a meeting where people are kicking against journalists, we want to give lessons to journalists, let them forget about that and never divulgate that type of information, because those people don't have the tools to really appreciate the work of journalists.
Maybe it is the National Communication Council. Even
the National Communication Council, as far as we are concerned, we don't totally accept what they used to do, because we believe that only journalists have the right to appreciate what's being done by journalists and even to punish journalists.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Charles Ngafongang, the National Communication Secretary for the National Union of Cameroonian Journalists.
It has been a pleasure.
All right, thanks for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television. Tomorrow is another day. Good night, goodbye from Douala.